then that the most infamous evil appeared, right inside the temple.
Whoa, that was scary. I got scared. Did you guys get scared? Hey everyone, Hudson here. And this is Realms of Ancient War. And this is a bad game. Realms of Ancient War is an action RPG and is as bare bones of a game you could possibly get. You might be thinking, hey, it's $15, it's low budget, how bad could it be? For starters, it lacks basic features that have been around in the genre since forever, like a map, the ability to zoom, or even having towns. There is no open world here, instead there are 26 levels that will bore you to death instead. Realms lacks everything that makes a hack and slash action RPG fun. Let's start with the story. While I realize this is hardly the reason people play games in the genre, most titles at least have something that is serviceable. This one doesn't. There are 4 kingdoms that are at constant war with one another. Their kings decide to hold a meeting to discuss peace. One of them doesn't return, and now there's evil demons everywhere. It's uninspired, cliched, and predictable from start to finish. Doesn't help that Rambo's character in the 2008 film had more lines of dialogue than this game has text in general. There are 3 character classes that you can choose from: the wizard, the warrior, and the rogue. Really breaking new ground here. The 26 levels are split across the human, elven, and dwarven continents. Aesthetically, there is little variation between them. Realms of Ancient War is an ugly looking game in general, unless you're a huge fan of the color brown. The levels themselves are incredibly boring and tedious. There is no mid-level save system either, if you decide to quit halfway through. The environments are static, there are no breakable objects or anything that can be interacted with unless it's a chest, an NPC, or a switch. Hilariously, there is no sense of depth or height either. Stairs and ladders only exist for area transitions and cannot be climbed. Campfires are solid objects and prevent projectiles from going through them. The levels look way too small for the resolution they're being rendered in. The parts of the level that were never drawn will simply be black and empty. Also, killing an enemy on a bridge will not have him fall into the water. It'll have him lay on top of the water. Remember, there is no real water. Anything that is non-interactive is just a background. Similarly enough, killing an enemy near a castle wall will have their corpse go through the wall and lay on the black emptiness that was never drawn. Levels are fully linear and the exit is generally blocked by something that forces you to backtrack. When you do, enemies magically spawn out of nowhere in areas that were just clear. The further you get into the game, the larger the levels become, and they start having small side areas, usually with a treasure chest at the end. And guess what happens when you open the chest? That's right, enemies spawn out of fucking nowhere. Halfway through the game, they must have said fuck it, because opening any chest resulted in enemies just spawning around you. Hell, enemies started spawning behind me as well. I start the level, I go in the only direction I can go in, I come across a group of enemies, and bam! Immediately out of nowhere, there's fucking enemies spawning behind me as well. That's what made Doom 3 so fun, wasn't it? Essentially, swarming is what the combat revolves around. The game attempts to surround you and keep you permanently stun-locked. It's not balanced in the slightest, and I'm pretty sure the developers realized that since they created a soul stone system. You can have up to 9 soul stones, essentially 9 lives that can be recharged, and every time you die, you get resurrected at a checkpoint. The first level of the game illustrates this mechanic very well, I should say. There's no real AI. Once an enemy sees you, they just fucking chase you. They're permanently aggroed. So the best way to deal with the swarming is to funnel enemies one by one through a choke point. They'll all bunch up, get stuck in walls or each other, and that'll give you an easy target. If you're masochistic enough and keep playing the game, you'll level up and eventually gain access to AoE spells that'll help you out as well. Realms shows its console roots during combat. There are 2 hotbars with 4 skills each. By default, left mouse is basic attack and right mouse is your character's specific attack. Wizard has an AoE pushback, Rogue uses a bow, and the Warrior has an AoE ground slam. This pretty much leaves you with room for only 6 active spells, despite there being a whole lot more than that in the skill tree. The 1 and 2 keys in both hotbars, and left and right mouse on the second one. To make matters worse, a spell can only be cast if it's in the hotbar. There's no other way to do it. Thankfully, the majority of the spells are fuck all useless, and you can get a respec scroll along the way. You'll quickly figure out what is worth using and what isn't. For example, the Rogue has an ability to make her go invisible. And that's all it fucking does. Is there a backstab element to it? Nope. Maybe a crit? Nope. You go invisible and that's it. What's the point? There isn't any. Maybe if you're trying to speed run through the game, perhaps? And, fucking run past all the enemies? Another spell she has summons magical wolves to help her. They last for around 10 seconds. They get stuck in terrain. The spell's cooldown is about a minute long. Yep, that's an excellent spell to have, alright. What I ended up doing was having my main and AoE attacks on my first hotbar, and my buffs on the second. The buffs gave me massive bonuses to attack speed, damage, and crit. For the last 7 or so levels, I just rushed through them, one-shotting anything that got in my way. Amazing balance. There's almost no enemy variety, and generally speaking, a level will only have around 4 enemy types. Also, the wolves and spiders that you encounter in the first level are copy-fucking-pasted into every single level in the game! You thought fighting them the first time around was boring? Well, too fucking bad. Looting is absolutely pointless. Instances where an enemy dropped an upgrade from me were rare, even when I had the skill that increased gold drops and quality of item drops maxed out. Just about all my items were purchased from merchants, or placed in the stupidest of locations. Yeah, it seems very reasonable for a merchant to be located in the catacombs, or in the middle of a fucking battlefield surrounded by demons. The items themselves are absolutely laughable. Aside from that one legendary set that exists for each class, all other pieces of equipment are named after a color, and graphically are just a reskin of default gear. Gee, do I go for the orange leggings? How about the sacred white armor? Maybe the red leather cap? The same items drop over and over again throughout the entire game. Their item level and stats just increase over time. Weapons cannot even have more than one elemental effect. I'm not even sure why gear for other classes is dropped. There is no shared stash, or any stash for that matter. You can't transfer items from one play session to another. God forbid you decide to do something retarded like play the game again as a different class. While Realms does have local-only co-op, it is fucking disgustingly bad. Your partner's character only exists for that play session, and is immediately leveled to the same level as you. After you turn the game off, that character is deleted, along with any items they had. Unless you plan on torturing a friend or family member to beat this game with you in one sitting, co-op is absolutely pointless. There are barely any graphical options to speak of. You can select a resolution and a preset of either low, medium, or high. Game's also locked to 60 FPS. Sound design of Realms involves having a 2-second long sound effect looped incessantly. All dwarves share the same exact footsteps sound effect. All humans have the same war cry. During combat, your character's offensive grunts and groans of pain are played at the same time and overlap each other. There is no real voice acting aside from the 4 so cutscenes, and that's probably for the best. Realms of Ancient War is a complete and utter joke of a game. It's somewhere around 8 to 10 hours long. It's not worth owning, it's not worth playing, and it's not even worth your time. The original Diablo from 1996 is infinitely superior in every shape and form, aside from arguably graphical fidelity. I got curious about the developer. Who could make such a terrible and bare-bones game? It turns out they're a French studio called Wizardbox, and they're known for making point-and-click adventure games. Realms came out on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network in September 2012. A month later, in October, it was released on Steam. 2 months later in December, the company filed for bankruptcy. Well, that answers all my questions.